The funny thing about New England is that we have some of the best cities and towns in the country, and uh, places that don't have as much history as we do are try to emulate the New England village, right? Or the urban squares that we have, or the downtowns that we have naturally. What we're, however, we as a region, because we've sort of been coasting on our laurels a little bit, and we haven't been quite as good as the rest of the country in creating new walkable places over the last few decades. And so we have some catching up to do. But you know, the kinds of places where people really want to be nowadays, they're walkable first of all, and walkable really means that they're compact and they're dense. So you have a lot of things to do in a small area. That's what makes them walkable. You know, one rule of thumb that Project for Public Spaces talks about is the rule of 10. In any great walkable place, there should be 10 things to do. That's what makes a great place. And if you think about most of our neighborhoods and even our downtowns, you'd be hard pressed to come up with 10 things to do. And they could be simple things like sitting on a bench, people watching, having a coffee, reading a book, but you can't do 10 things generally in a place. But there are places where you can do that. You think of Harvard Square. You think of, a lot of places in downtown Boston, Charlestown, outside of the Boston area, in Worcester, Worcester used to have a downtown where you could do easily 10 things. But we had this period of time where you had all of this exodus from the center city. You had this era of urban renewal, which almost tried to turn some of our great places into parking lots and suburban-like areas, and we have to retrofit them now, get them back to the way they used to be. So, downtown Worcester has these, great bones. The blocks are wonderfully sized. Generally, you want to have 200-foot blocks. That gives you a lot of corners because corners are exciting downtown. You don't want these super blocks that are these just wind tunnels. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of connections. That's why the grid pattern is the most efficient urban pattern. We don't have a lot of grid in New England, but we do have a lot of kind of pedestrian scale stuff, which is great. We don't necessarily have these, Atlanta-like 12 lanes of highways that we have to cross. But even in Worcester, the streets are probably too wide in many places in downtown, and we could do what folks call a road diet, where you shrink them and you create more space for pedestrians, more public space for sidewalk activities like cafes, like events, and think like landscaping, green infrastructure to absorb water and help prevent flooding and things like that. More protected bike lanes. All of these things are things that really improve our enjoyment of the urban atmosphere, and it supports business. So and people want to be walking around, and more foot traffic creates all of this kind of. It improves public safety because you have more eyes on the street, and it creates the environment in which small businesses can survive and thrive nowadays. Because small businesses can't compete with the Walmarts and the big box stores of the world unless they're in a place where they get a lot of foot traffic. And that's really the niche in the future. And the great thing is now we have increasing numbers of people who want to be in these walkable places, and that's going to be good for our small business community.